Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight on the Cerulean sphere, we'll be exploring a modern metaphysical mythos, that of the Green Lantern. And I have with me my panel of experts, and we'll start with John. John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, Hercules. I am John Pepe. You can find me slinging comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Also, you can find me pretty much at least once a month. We do our best to do once a month on this very Mount Olympus podcast network with my show called The Pep Talk.
Thank you very much. And Paul, the legendary Paul. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, Paul?
Well, I'm very excited about tonight's show because I love Green Lantern. Um, I used to collect comic books. I was a notorious letter hack. And if you look letter hack Wikipedia, you'll see my name there. I had over 1,000 letters published in
Wow.
comic books. And George R. Martin of Game of Thrones or Fire and Ice, he was a letter hack, and he's on there too. So I used to have also to a newsletter called the People's Comic Book Newsletter, and we had something like over 150 issues. And all of those issues can be found at the Michigan State University Special Collections and Bowling Green University over in Ohio. So, so I've been involved with comics for a long time, and now, well, I'm a former paranormal investigator, and I write books on the paranormal. But I throw in comic book stuff into these paranormal books, so it's never left me.
So good. I'm glad you still have it, and I'm glad you're bringing it here. Last but not least, we have a newcomer to our company, Ezra. Ezra, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Hello, everybody. As Hercules just said, I am Ezra. You can find me also slinging comics and annoying John at the Joker's Child. I am a relatively new comic book fan. I've been collecting them for about 3, 4-ish years now, and that's kind of where my reintroduction to the Green Lantern Corps began. I think like a lot of people my age, I watched the movie, and he never quite showed up again after that, and I never knew why. But then now reading the comics and learning about like all the different core, I'm you know I'm all charged up and ready to go. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, and I will introduce everybody to the concept for tonight's show. I'm a student of all things metaphysical, and I'm also a retired paranormal investigator. I've been published in over 25 paranormal anthologies, the most recent being Weird Time and Theurgy. And I have another book coming out in a couple of months, and Paul is in that book as well on ghosts. So that's my background. And currently, I'm trying to form an organizational structure that will be metaphysical, but also social. So my work in my careers has been in the fields of education and human services primarily. So now I'm retired. I'll be 70 in a couple of years. And I'm trying to think of the most constructive way to use my time. And I figured I could bring my profession and my passion for things strange and fringy and do something very satisfying with that. So that's where I am. And decided to focus on the theosophical color scheme of the Elohim, or the creators. So I think creativity is a great thing. I think it's one of the more divine attributes. So that came naturally for me, that choice. And the blue ray in the new theosophy is led by Hercules. So the theosophical Hercules and his consort Amazonia, who's pretty much Athena. So that seemed appropriate for me in my life. My wife is Athena. Uh, so it was a good place to start. And recently, as I was researching colors and how they're used throughout history, I came across something on the Green Lantern Corps and how there are other Green Lantern Corps that are green. And I found the blue ray, of course, not that much information on that as on some of the other rays. But before I begin plunging my mind into exploring this, I want to hear from people who can guide me. and you guys know me personally, and now you know my interest in those particular areas. So I'm curious to see where you direct me, and I'll have a great place to start my investigation. So we will start with John. John, what can you tell me about the rays and Blu-ray in particular, and what do you recommend that I look into?
Okay. So I think part of why Ezra and I are here, as well as Paul too, is to sort of give the comic book context and background as well a little bit. So I'm going to just really briefly just basically Green Lantern as a character created 1941. I believe Gardner Fox and Martin Nodell was the artist. I say Gardner Fox because he basically wrote every Golden Age character except for Batman and Superman for the most part. Original Green Lantern, Alan Scott. Ring was powered by Will, and he had a weakness to wood, and his ring was a little different. It looked like that. And then you flash forward to the late 50s for the Silver Age, and they were revamped. They started to revamp some of the characters. First was Flash, big significant visual and character change, though the power set was the same. And next up was Green Lantern. And so now Green Lantern was Hal Jordan, a real sort of brash test pilot who is recruited into this space corps, the Green Lantern Corps. So now it's not one guy, it's a whole galaxy of space cops. And the ring chooses him when the current bearer is on the verge of death. So it's a real sort of passing of the torch, the transcendental signifier in fiction. So this powerful item is handed down from one elder to a younger. And over the years, they really did follow Hal. They introduced a couple other alternate Green Lanterns, Guy Gardner and John Stewart. And then flash forward to about 2006, 2007. Jeff Johns basically writes a story called Green Lantern Rebirth, where it reestablishes Hal as the main Green Lantern after having a fall from grace, redemption, rebirth, right? And reestablishes the Green Lantern Corps, and then begins to plant seeds for what would become a sort of Roy G. Biv of lanterns and lantern rings. So he had to start with the obvious ones and keep those. So in Green Lantern mythos, green represents willpower. Yellow had already been established as an antimatter ring from an antimatter universe. That sort of transmogrified through Green Lantern Rebirth and under Jeff Johns' hands to really represent yellow. Originally, the yellow lantern ring or the yellow Sinestro ring was created as because Hal Jordan Green Lantern's weakness was yellow. So it's like a bizarro Superman type thing. You want to give the hero someone with the opposite. So that weakness is, that yellow ring, right? Along with all things yellow. So Jeff Johns had to work with those established color sets. So yellow is not creativity in the Green Lantern mythos. Then he, one by one, slowly introduces a red lantern, red being anger, and then an orange lantern for greed. And then there was the blue lantern, which represents hope. Help me out here, Ezra. The sapphire, the
sapphire, pink is love.
Pink is love.
Indigo is compassion.
Yeah.
And then you've got black and white, which are death and life, respectively.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, red, violet, and indigo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is the whole color spectrum. And for certain cases, because comics have that sort of very grim, dark vibe that people do gravitate towards. You were saying you couldn't find much on the Blue Lanterns. The Blue Lanterns have been used very sparingly compared to, say, the Red Lanterns. Red Lanterns really took off more so than some of the the other colors, as far as being able to do just great space monsters. There's even a cat who's a Red Lantern, so they really blended that. And the Blue Lanterns representing hope were very helpful in story wise in the payoff to Blackest Night, which was a big sort of introducing again, advancing, expanding on the Black Lantern concept. The dead were given Black Lanterns and they rose. So it was basically like Marvel Zombies for the DC universe, but with a Green Lantern focus. And sort of the Blue Lanterns with their optimism and their hope, their all will be well mantra, are one of the saviors of that storyline. So yeah, the colors mean very different things. A lot of the colors in the Green Lantern mythos are also established, like what we associate colors with, right? Famously, Kenneth Johnson, when he was doing the Incredible Hulk show, he goes, why does he have to be green? He should be red, because red is the color of anger, right? So that's always sort of part and parcel with that color. Of course, green is usually more associated with jealousy, like green with envy. Yellow is more associated with being scared rather than instilling fear, and so forth. So that's sort of that's your basis in a nutshell. What the colors represent in the Green Lantern mythos. So if you were interested in using those colors on your journey, I would definitely say green, because you have very strong willpower, my friend. Blue, because hope is very important. And I would probably say the pink and the indigo, love and indigo, are sort of part and parcel, I think, of what I see represents you on the color spectrum.
Thank you. Those are very kind words, and I will contemplate them. And thank you for the overview. I now have a much bigger picture. We're going to move on to Paul. Paul, what can you add to that expands our understanding of the Green Lantern Corps and all the other color corps?
Well, there's a few things I would like to ask John Pepe and Ezra. Okay. The Sinestro Corps. Okay, I know that represents fear.
Mm-hmm.
But what color were they? I forget.
Oh, they're the yellow. They're the yellow lanterns.
They're the yellow lanterns.
So,
yes.
Oh yeah, the yellow ones. Okay.
Because so Sinestro was, Hal Jordan Green Lantern's main villain, and so since that Green Lantern had the weakness to yellow, they said, "Oh, give him his villain the opposite." And so Sinestro was actually a former Green Lantern who went power mad and used his willpower to sort of subjugate his planet and become the ruler. And so another layer of the mythos that maybe we'll get a little bit more into it later, but basically the lanterns are run by the Guardians, these little blue guys, right? And so they took the ring away from Sinestro. His real name, his birth name, his given name is Sinestro.
And
so
they give him a power ring.
And they, and what were
like, close enough. We're my members. Here you go.
And what were his parents thinking? Setting goals for your kid at that young of an age. Yeah, you're Sinestro, boy. So yeah,
Dr. Doom.
Dr. Doom, Von Doom, right? And so yeah, so when Jeff Johns comes along and sort of starts building these multi-lantern corps, he looked to Sinestro with the yellow lantern, and there's a whole thing. It's actually, if anybody wants a really good primer or starting point on Green Lantern mythos, it's called Green Lantern Rebirth. It is the first real Green Lantern story that Jeff Johns wrote. It reestablishes the core, gives you a great history of Hal And part of Hal's fall from grace was being possessed by parallax, right? Parallax is, it's explained, is sort of the embodiment of fear. So it is a yellow space
It's
silverfish.
monster, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, if I could just jump on real quick. Two things. One, another reason why you might not see the Blue Lanterns a lot is because their rings are made for defense. Every other Lantern Corps can create constructs, can fire energy blasts. The Blue Lantern's rings only work in that same capacity when they are around a Green Lantern. And also, they can enhance a Green Lantern's powers. So, in like a big cosmic book or a Green Lantern story in general, you might not see the Blue Lanterns because they really can't do much with their rings. They really are the peacekeeper of the Lantern spectrum. And the entity that John was talking about, Parallax, each Lantern Corps has their own. I don't ask me the names because I don't remember them. But they are all these creatures that are older than time and kind of grafted themselves onto each Lantern Corps. And obviously, those creatures represent that emotion a lantern takes on.
So I know, at least for the Green Lanterns, there's a giant power battery on Oa, which is the planet that sits at the center of the universe, where the Guardians sort of, dispatch their space cops, right? And so that giant power battery is the source of all the lanterns' power. So when you become a Green Lantern, you get a ring and you get a lantern, right? And you have to charge your lantern every 24 hours. That's another built-in sort of weakness to, it's like Peter running out of his web fluids, right? It's, you gotta have that little, something a little more than just the kryptonite. And so basically, yeah, these giant multicolored space silverfish, they all live inside these power batteries for these core. In a roundabout way. I think it's a very oversimplification, I think, of what actually does happen. But so basically, when they, set up these multi-lantern corps, the Sinestro Corps is the first one really to be set up, since Sinestro was an established character, already had wielded the yellow power ring, and then begins to form this Sinestro Corps, but they are also the Yellow Lanterns, right?
And I grew up with Hal Jordan, and if I remember right, I'm old, so I kind of forget things. But didn't Hal Jordan almost become a god, or was that some other Green Lantern?
So that's Hal's fall from grace, right? So
Okay.
Hal Jordan, in the early '90s, there was a big trend in comics towards, death of Superman, right? Breaking Batman's back, having Batman replaced by a different guy in the suit until Bruce Wayne comes back, right? So they did the same with Green Lantern. So basically, Hal Jordan, as a result of the death of Superman, was his city gets destroyed in that event, Coast City, and everybody he knows is dead, right? And so he is angry because the Corps will not allow him to fix things. Now, as paranormal, metaphysical folk, it's a really powerful issue. I want to say Green Lantern Volume 2-ish, 48, issue 48, where basically Hal uses the ring to resurrect his lost loved ones from Coast City. And so he's literally talking to these ghosts. It's a really moving, really, really intense issue. So Hal basically decides, if these guys aren't going to help me out, I'm going to do it myself. And so he turns against his own Corps, and he takes the power battery. He defeats every Green Lantern and takes all their power batteries, even kills some of them, right? And then, with all the power rings, ventures into the central power battery in Oa, and then emerges from that as calls himself Parallax. Now, the Yellow Lantern giant space silverfish that Ezra was talking about didn't have a lantern of its own. It was imprisoned in the green power battery by the Guardians. So that is in a retcon that is revealed in this Green Lantern Rebirth I was telling you about. That is what possesses Hal Jordan and allows Hal to basically, he has all this power. So he does ascend essentially almost to godhood. And his first big act is the event called 0 Hour, where he tries to reset time from the Big Bang going forward so that it fits what Hal Jordan thinks the universe should be, which would also include making sure Coast City was never destroyed. And eventually Hal does have a redemptive arc where he there's an event called Final Night where the sun is put out and Hal uses his powers to reignite the sun at the cost of his life. Now we're going to go back to the metaphysical and a character sitting on the shelf with no one to hang his hat on, or cloak, that is, and Hal Jordan who just died saving the universe. So you know the Spectre, right? Spectre is a ghostly, he's the ghost of vengeance. He's a spirit of vengeance. Created in the Golden Age.
Oh, yeah.
Detective Jim Corrigan.
Jim Corrigan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
okay.
the Spectre, they had gotten rid of Jim Corrigan, so the Spectre was hanging around as a IP. Hal Jordan's now freshly dead. So there, for several years, Hal Jordan was the Spectre.
Oh.
And he had all sorts of ghostly, spooky adventures for a couple of years. So that was really cool.
You know, this is, John, this is really funny, but a while back, I did a little chat GPT, and I said, who has the most characters, Marvel or DC? And it says because DC has 7,200 Green Lanterns and
Oh my
3,600
God.
36 yellow lanterns, and they have 200 red, violet, and indigo lanterns, only 10 blue lanterns, one orange. And they said because of that, that takes them over the top and beats Marvel.
See, but that's really funny because there has been an established number for the Green Lantern Corps, but you've never seen all of them. So that's sort of taking into account, you could also say, well, both universes have X amount of billions of entities and people in them, that's really funny that's what pushes it over the edge.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really, really great.
Pushes right over the edge. Now I got something else to ask. Okay, boom. Ryan Reynolds, who played Green Lantern. Why is
that movie?
Why is he so embarrassed with that movie? He makes fun
Wait,
of it.
let me tell you this one. I think it's because, and he's talked about it before. I don't know if it was him, but somebody involved in the movie has like a forward in one of the Blackest Night trades, talking about how great this movie is going to be, what an undertaking this film is going to be. And I think it's because the entire team behind it, the actors, the crew, producers, whatever, had such high hopes for kind of starting like a cinematic universe, starting with Green Lantern. And I think because that movie did so badly, it kind of, obviously it soured the reputation of this character, right? Something that me and John have been talking about is the fact that the trailer for this new Lantern show looks nothing like a Green Lantern comic because so many people have been turned off to the idea since the movie. Like the fact like the suits were CGI, or that the only thing he seemed to make is like a giant race car track. Like all these things that are just detriments to the Green Lantern. And I think I think just the fact that years later he pivoted upwards with Deadpool, not X-Men Origins, the solo movie Deadpool. He pivoted so much better with the Marvel universe, and he's like, screw this movie. I was young, I was stupid. So I think, obviously I'm not friends with the guy, but I think that's his thought process of like, I tried something, it didn't work. We all had really high hopes. And I think that's what happens. I think in life, if you have, like something you want to do and it doesn't turn out at all the way you envisioned it, I think it's going to probably, sully you in the future. Mm-hmm. I think that's what happened with with good old Ryan.
Yeah, and it's funny because so he did crappy Deadpool at X-Men Origins Wolverine first. And then he wanted to play the Flash over at Warner Brothers. And instead they gave him Green Lantern. And he goes, "Well, this is my only shot, right? If I'm going to play in this universe, this is it. That other thing that I really wanted to do didn't quite work out so well." And so yeah, so it is only because of the failure of Green Lantern that he was able to pivot back to Marvel and Fox and say, let's do Deadpool right. And he kind of, the way he worked that out was genius. A great example in sort of stealth promotion and viral leaking, things like that. So because it was something where it's like they did some test footage and that got leaked to the public, and the response was so big, 20th Century Fox had no choice but to let him make this movie. So Green Lantern, yeah, you are absolutely correct, Ezra. That was the movie that was supposed to start a new DC or the DC franchise. And I think part of it was they threw too much at the audience in the first movie. And I feel like, just like in the comics, you are introduced to the concept of the core, right from word go with the first, Silver Age Hal Jordan comic. But it wasn't until almost a year or so later where you actually go to Oa and you see the core, right? And they kind of wanted to front load that movie with a lot of lore that I feel easily digestible for us, but was a little bit, I think, too heavy, too lore heavy for the average audience.
Or the younger audience. I remember when I saw it, I was obviously like a lot younger. I I felt really overwhelmed. I remember because I wasn't reading comics. I wasn't reading Green Lantern. Um, any other superhero thing I saw at the time felt a lot simpler than this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So you're definitely right. You're definitely right.
Yeah.
Like, not people not as involved in this universe, it was easy to get lost.
Yeah. So like Star Wars works because you only get a hint of what a Jedi is and the possibility that anybody could be a Jedi. So Green Lantern as a movie really needs to capture that magic. It needs to give people the sense of like, oh, there's a lot more to here than so you want, because as we were kids when Star Wars was rolling out and you're like, I want to see a lot of Jedi eventually, and yeah, eventually we got it. And again, opinions vary now on the prequel trilogies and whatnot, but that you did have to wait quite a long time to see a whole bunch of Jedi Knights on screen at the same time, right? And so I'm not saying they should have waited that long for Green Lantern, but I think that they should have seeded that idea, put that mystery out there, and then give the viewer that feeling of like, maybe one of these rings will wind up in my hands,
And since I have all these powerful people that know so much about Green Lantern, there's a couple more things I just want to ask, and then I'll pass the torch. Guy Gardner in the movies, it was by this actor named Nathan Fillion. I never heard of him before. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Really?
Well, I never really. Yeah, that's like, as soon as I saw him on there, I go, who is that guy? And I looked him up and I go, okay, I never, watched him in any other movie. But what I thought was that he was Woody Harrelson because he acts like Woody Harrelson. I mean, am I right, or am I imagining this?
I could see it, especially with the red hair and the bowl haircut that they gave him. Yeah. So, and also, Guy Gardner is a very brash, outspoken character. So really quick, Guy Gardner was actually the substitute Lantern in case something happened to Hal. And then Guy Gardner winds up in a coma for a bunch of years. And then when he's resurrected, pretty much right around the Crisis on Infinite Earth, so the mid 80s, he is sort of taken out of the coma by the Guardians, given a Guardian ring. They allow more than, they had already allowed more than one Green Lantern on Earth, Sector 2814, if you want to be that nerdy about it. But and so Guy was always sort of like, where Hal was the military guy, the real sort of by the book rule follower. John Stewart was a little more brash and a little more rebellious, but still had, a moral sort of background, a moral center. And then Guy, it was just this loose, became this loose cannon, said whatever he wanted, hit on whatever girl he wanted, famously got punched out by Batman with one punch in the 80s, then went through a whole sort of personality change where he was super nice and super sensitive until people brought back regular Guy, right? And so, that's sort of, he's that guy. And I think that, yes, Woody Harrelson, is very much that sort of brash, outspoken, says whatever is on his mind, and has that no filter thing. So I could definitely see that.
Okay.
I am surprised though. I mean, so you've never watched Firefly, the show Firefly, which Nathan
I
Fillion was
watched
on?
a couple episodes.
So he was on that.
Buffy.
Did you Buffy? He was the big bad in the final season of Buffy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
so,
okay, okay.
yeah. No,
Yeah, I used to watch Buffy. Yeah.
yeah.
In
And
fact, I met the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who played in the movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Nathan Fillion also voiced Hal Jordan in one of the
And
what
a
do you
lot of
call
them
it?
actually.
A few of them.
So it's the DC animated movie universe. And he wasn't Hal Jordan the entire time. I think for the first 5 or 6 films that maybe featured him. I think when he first took over the voice, it was for their adaptation of Death of Superman, and then he did it for the rest of it. And so I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that he was going to be Hal Jordan, but they made the pivot to him as Guy Gardner, which I think was I think was great. But yeah, I mean, Nathan's had some involvement in the DC universe for some time. Also, not part of the DC AMU, but still an animated movie. Justice League Doom, or sorry, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. He voiced Hal Jordan in that as well.
You guys are bringing me up to speed. I have one more question. Okay, is John Stewart the Green Lantern now in the present time?
They're all the Green Lanterns now.
They're all gonna.
All 7,000
yes.
of them.
Right now, John Stewart is currently Green Lantern. Not to get too technical or too nerdy, as John would say, but there are right now 2 John Stewarts running around. One is focused on being a Green Lantern as part of the Corps. The other one, I believe, is married. So there's one living like an ideal life where he's just a farmer, actually. And then there's the other one who's the soldier, who is the Green Lantern. So there are 2 right now. I think they're both alive and well, because you never know in comics. But yes, John Stewart is Green Lantern. I think right now with the show coming out and everything, I don't think they want to limit the number of human Green Lanterns right now. I think the more the merrier.
Gotcha.
Wait, how are there 2 John Stewarts? Is this something with the power rings, or is this?
So, I read the book like a few years ago, so my memory was a little bit hazy because I was like, "This is stupid," and I kind of wiped it from my head. But it had to do with an antimatter universe, not the antimatter universe like the Yellow Ring, just one of them, because there are so many. John basically, once he entered it, it split himself in half. And so one decided to stay behind because it wasn't all bad, and then one just left, went back to Earth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, now
that'll get cleaned up.
Ezra. So Ezra, it's your turn. fill in whatever blanks these guys left for us through their presentation of the questions, and then I'll return it back to the Blu-ray.
I mean, I think that they pretty much covered everything when it comes to Green Lantern and how it kind of relates to a more metaphysical state of being. I would add, in terms of like spirituality, that kind of thing, the concept of two relatively new Green Lanterns, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, who, as opposed to having their own individual rings, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't read the build up to this event, they both shared halves of Hal Jordan's ring.
I think that is correct. Yes, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. Yeah, yeah.
Again, I didn't read the build up to the story. I didn't read what came before that rebirth. But they, for a time, I don't think it's now, share like two split halves of the ring or something along those lines. And the really interesting thing, so for me personally, not to get like too self-centered or anything, but I try to read comic book characters that I relate to. So Spider-Man, Superman to an extent. So I never really saw myself in Hal Jordan or even like John Stewart or Guy Gardner. Cause like I just, I wasn't like a smooth talking test pilot flying around in space. Like I never saw myself in the Green Lanterns until Simon Baz, because I'm not always like 100% a very confident person, and neither was he. But his confidence was so lacking that he carried a gun. That for a big chunk of his beginning of his Green Lantern career, he carried a sidearm, which obviously with the ring feels really, really useless. And he stopped carrying it when he met Batman, which I think is so funny that like Batman scared a Green Lantern straight to stop carrying a gun. And then Jessica Cruz, who had very heavy agoraphobia because she went on like a camping trip and like everybody else except her got like brutally murdered and that kind of thing. And I think just to tie this back into your whole thing, Hercules, when it comes to spirituality, is the idea of finding something that kind of brings you out of your shell and brings you to being more yourself. And for Simon and Jessica, that was becoming a Green Lantern. And it started off with the two of them forced to be partners, and then they kind of like split off and did their own thing. So I think that's really cool. That's kind of another reason why I got into Green Lantern was I like Simon, and I'm lucky enough that he's in some part of the new Absolute universe. But yeah, I love Simon. I love Jessica. I'll talk about them any chance I get.
I just really quick to kind of piggyback on that, as well as Paul's question about John Stewart being presently a Green Lantern. One of the interesting things about comics and with expanding the balloon that is the Green Lantern mythos is over time, that was felt like in the early 90s, okay, let's change it up. Hal's been around long enough. Younger readers don't really gravitate towards him. So we're going to replace him with a new, hip, young 90s guy, Kyle Rayner, right? And Kyle Rayner is an artist. And you first see Kyle Rayner, he's got a Nine Inch Nails shirt, and, he's given the ring, and then he's your Green Lantern. And everybody really liked Kyle, who were introduced to Green Lantern, through him as a character. But then there was this sort of movement to bring Hal back. And so and then you also had John kind of taking precedence, for a bit in the 80s, but then also in the early 2000s in the Justice League cartoon. He kind of became the de facto Justice League Green Lantern for a while. In fact, Hal wasn't even has one very quick reference in the entirety of the DCAU, which is the Bruce, Tim, Paul Dini, Batman, Superman, Justice League universe, right? And so then Jeff Johns comes in, and he not only, he's one of these writers that will find the tiniest bit of like minutia in comics and then connect it to something else and then really kind of build this great tapestry. So not only was he satisfied with creating all these multi-lantern core or multicolored lantern core, he also creates two new Green Lanterns, Simon Baz. Jeff Johns is Lebanese, so Simon Baz is Lebanese. He wanted to really put that stamp in there. And because he also, I think, just like Scott Snyder, who's another comic book writer, I think he also struggles with anxiety. He decided to put that heavily into Jessica Cruz's background. He also created a great legacy character called Stargirl in honor of his sister who had passed away too young, So Jeff Johns is really the characters he's created. He's really put some personal stamps into them. And so the thing that happens is that when you have a concept, much like Highlander, the original concept is there could be only one, and then you start, okay, we're going to replace it with this guy. Now, this guy, people really like this replacement guy, but people still like the old guy. Okay, and then you start creating more and more, and people really like the characters that you're creating. You have no choice but to sort of do that that sort of Deus ex machina and have the people who are controlling the Green Lanterns, the Guardians, basically be like, yeah, it's fine. Earth can have as many Green Lanterns as you want, because the fans like Hal and Guy and Kyle and John and Simon and Jessica. So that, so because you could do sort of what you want in that sort of that medium. Yeah. So now it is perfectly acceptable because again, people were so good at creating these characters and then letting these characters grow and breathe that fans didn't want to see them go. And so these characters will always now be as part of the Green Lantern Corps.
And it's so funny because Green Lantern from the DC universe actually bled over into the Marvel universe because Rocket Raccoon actually acquired a Green Lantern ring.
Little nods, there's little things you can do. It's as long as you can do whatever you want, as long as you don't actually say what it is, right? So yeah, right. Rocket just finds something that looks like a Green Lantern ring. Is like, oh great,
and it's so funny because Green Lantern also too is part of the whole multiverse because he ran into the people of Star Trek, Aliens, Planet of the Apes, Black Hammer, Space Ghost, Duck Dodgers, and Colonel Sanders.
And Silver Surfer.
Oh yeah,
I think Kyle, who's Green Lantern, in the 90s when DC and Marvel were doing a lot of these crossovers, Kyle Rayner crossed over with Silver Surfer in a one shot.
I love crossovers. I do. I love
it. I think something else that makes the Lantern Corps popular in the comic book community is the idea that how John was saying some of the Star Wars, like anybody can be a Green Lantern. One of like the easiest things that the Green Lantern comic books do is just give rings to people. Like Batman's become a Yellow Lantern. The Flash was a Blue Lantern in Blackest Night. Mara, Aquaman's wife, was a Red Lantern. So the idea that these rings can graft onto people who have wildly different power sets, or in Batman's case, no power set at all, makes them a lot more interesting. And in terms of the Blu-ray Hercules, obviously, Superman is the easy choice to get into, but Flash does very well embody the idea of hope as well. I mean, Flash Rebirth, in that same restarted universe is another great book to read.
Okay, that was going to be, I have two questions to ask. We have like 15 more minutes left. So that you read my mind. I was going to ask questions. Where do I go from here? So Rebirth is a good recommendation. I found looking through my stuff, or my wife's looking through my stuff because I have difficulty with my Parkinson's, I already have First Flight, which is an animated.
Oh, yeah.
I ordered the movie. I ordered the graphic novel for Blackest Night.
Good.
And the video animated for Emerald Knights.
Good.
So far, I'm waiting on those.
Yeah.
And I should order Rebirth, you're saying?
So along the lines of Green Lantern Rebirth, written by Jeff Johns and illustrated by tremendous artist Ethan Van Sciver, who, though unfortunately is a true garbage human being, but his art is gorgeous, so he gets a pass just because of this book. They did the same thing with Flash. So this is Green Lantern Rebirth. So this gives you basically a history of Green Lantern. It reestablishes Hal Jordan from being the Spectre to being alive again and being Green Lantern, and reestablishes the Green Lantern Corps. And then from here, you would go to Blackest Night, because Blackest Night is where it springs off of a lot of threads in here. And Blackest Night is really the big introduction of the multi-lantern Corps. So alongside Green Lantern Rebirth, Jeff Johns and Ethan Von Sciver did Flash Rebirth, which does the same thing. It gives you a history of the Flash. It resurrects Barry Allen, who had been one of the longer deaths in comics, been dead for about 20 years at that point. It brings Barry Allen back as the Flash, but then also establishes that all these other Flashes can still be Flash.
Okay.
But I would say, yeah, for Green Lantern Rebirth, Blackest Night, and if you can track down, I have the Absolute Edition, but the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series by Denny O'Neil and Jeff Johns. Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. A milestone, a watershed in comics. Coincidentally enough, Ezra, this is one of the first comics that hooked you in and turned
Yes,
you
it
on to
was.
comics. And done in the late 60s. This is what introduced, this has the story that introduces John Stewart. This has the famous panel of the man on the street who goes to Hal Jordan. I see on the TV you help the blue people and the purple people out in space. How come you don't help the black people on Earth? You know, so this became this was comics with a social conscience. And in the late 60s, just some dynamite stories. It's basically you have Space Cop and radical liberal Archer going on the road across America and encountering different segments of America in that time period, and basically doing their best to right what they perceive are wrongs. But then you learn along the way that perception of wrong might not always be right, and perception of right might not always be wrong. You know, sometimes there's a wrong to your right, right? So highly recommend this. It'll probably bring back some good memories, because this is probably stuff you've probably read in the past
Years ago, yeah.
and might have forgotten about. But boy, it still plays today. It really still plays today.
Thank you. Ezra, can you add anything to that recommended reading or viewing or listening list?
I mean, Phil definitely stole mine, because that's one of the books that hooked me in the comics. I would say this is a little more out there, because it's not exclusively a Green Lantern story or a Hal Jordan story, but DC versus Vampires, specifically it's called World War V. You get some really cool stuff with Guy Gardner, and even though it is an Elseworld story, you see the Ring do some things that not even like Kyle Rayner, who's like the most like creative of the Green Lanterns, does. Just actually, DC versus Vampires in general is great, because you get vampire Hal Jordan, but in terms of the Ring and how it can be used, and how specifically one's like mindset can influence how creative and how genuinely precise you can be with this weapon, World War V it would definitely be a recommendation I would give.
Thank you so very much. And you've been very informative during the segment, so I'll be inviting you back for other segments. Thank you.
I will be accepting. Thank you.
Two other ones I think that, especially for, you know, older sci-fi fans, they're two short one-shots. There's one by science fiction writer Larry Niven, illustrated by John Byrne. It's called Green Lantern Ganthet's Tale. And it's just really neat to see a sci-fi writer of Larry Niven's esteem sort of play in that sandbox. And the John Byrne art is John Byrne art, so it's always worth it, pretty to look at. And then another great fantasy writer, loves to write about the human condition and yet tie it in with mythology and history. Also happens to kind of be a garbage human, I believe, is what we're finding out. But Neil Gaiman has a one-shot, a Superman Green Lantern one-shot, I think called The Green Flame, which is really interesting, really fascinating. And that is done by multiple artists. Each sequence is illustrated by different artists. And that's a neat one too to check out. They're like very slim bookshelf, 48-page books that are probably cheap and easy to find. Yeah.
If you can do me a favor, John, and email me a list by email or through personal messenger, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. And Paul, what can you add to the reading list?
You're muted, Paul.
You're muted.
Oh, hello.
Hey!
All right. We're back on air again. Okay, so
can you add any recommended Green Lantern or Lantern Corps reading to the books that they suggested for me?
When I was reading comic books, I did read Green Lantern, Superman, stuff like that. In fact, I was just notified not too long ago that I was part of the Baldy Awards. Have you guys ever heard of that?
I wished I got a Baldy Award. Yeah.
Baldy
Award.
They said I got. Yeah, this comic book historian named Fabio contacted me, and I'm trying to hook him up with Hercules, and he's a comic book historian, and he says that I won a Baldy Award, and it was actually mentioned in Superman 109. Well, I don't have Superman 109. And so, but I never even knew they had a Baldy Award, but somehow I won it.
During the 90s, during the triangle era of Superman, as they'll call it, leading into the death of Superman and a little bit beyond, they sort of had because all the Superman books were structured to basically be a weekly book comic by different creators. And so you had 4 Superman comics, and the letters page would kind of carry over in that as well. So among the Superman titles, there would be, I think it wasn't a no prize, because a no prize would be if you were able to justify a mistake, in a Marvel comic, if there was a perceived mistake, if you were able to say, no, it wasn't a mistake, it was because of this, right? And the no prize was just that. It was an empty envelope. I think that would be sent to the person who won it. The Baldy Awards, I think, was the letter of the week or whatever, whatever that it was. This one letter that I don't think it did what the no prize did, but it was one letter that would, they would be like, oh, this great letter, you won the Baldy. So if it was mentioned in Superman 109, there was a couple month lag on when letters would get printed, right, and responded to. So it was probably a letter you wrote about Superman 106, 107, something like that, right? So that's pretty cool. They never sent you it though. I think it was an honorific.
I never got it. So was I supposed to get something?
I think it was more like an honorific. I think it was probably, just like, oh, congratulations, you won our Baldy Award.
Okay. And Hercules,
pat yourself on the back.
Oh yeah. Okay. And thank you, John, because I never knew that. So Hercules, I'm going to try to hook you up with this guy, comic book historian. He'll be a good fit for the show. He knows a lot of stuff. Ezra and John, it was nice seeing you guys again. God, you get me all excited. I want to run down to the comic book store and buy some comics now.
Nice.
Well, you know where to go.
Yeah.
It's a long run from California, though.
Oh yeah, long run,
well worth it. And before everybody shares the contact information, we have the new Lantern show starting, and they just released the information that one of the lanterns in the Lantern show is going to be in Man of Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
John Stewart.
Yep.
So anybody
John Stewart.
Scoops on that series?
Nothing beyond the trailer. I have my thoughts and speculations. A lot of people, like Ezra mentioned before, a little myth that it doesn't show a lot of Green Lantern-y stuff, but I think the trailer's just a piece of the first couple episodes. I think it will expand. The one thing I will say though about responses to the show, and I kind of have a gripe with the creators. And maybe it's next level trolling, but a lot of people's question, why is it just called lanterns? And the one of the creators, showrunners said, because we thought Green Lantern was stupid, right? Wrong answer.
Wrong answer.
Because unless you want to troll and get people upset just to hate watch the show and then be like, oh wow, it's actually good, which is such a weird strategy, but that seems to be what's going on now. But I think the show is going to play with more than just the Green Lantern core. So I think this show, over the 8 episodes, we will be introduced into the concept of the multicolored lantern core. So I think that that's part and parcel of what the title is doing there.
That's where my thoughts took me. Ezra?
I think to go back to John's point of like again the idea of like anybody can be a lantern. I think the best way to expose people to this whole mythos, not just Green, but the entire collection of the core, is on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think that every episode will be like, oh, there's an episode all about green, here's an episode all about red, here's an episode all about yellow. I think there will be obviously like a narrative plot, but maybe how we'll tell John about these other core, or we'll see them. I've seen a rumor online, so don't quote me, that the pilot episode will be an hour and a half long. So everything from that trailer could just be from the pilot, and then we'll get more stuff bleeding through the rest of the show. But I personally think that we will see more like Green Lantern stuff. I don't think like we'll have to wait till like the last episode to see like the costumes and the rings and everything. I think we'll see it slowly throughout the show.
As long as they don't look like the Power Rangers.
Yeah, that costume's looking interesting. I've seen a lot of people gripe about the fact that it's a physical costume, where obviously the popular thing about the lanterns is it comes from the ring. It's supposed to reflect the user's like culture and planet and species and all that jazz. But also, Guy Gardner's suit is obviously a corporate costume, and I don't think he had the willpower to dream up all those lines and seams and everything. So I think the idea of a physical costume is a little bit nicer, and I think it makes it all much more tangible, because I think that's what James Gunn is kind of going for. Like, for example, like I don't know if you, Paul, or Hercules, if you guys watched Peacemaker season 2 or even season 1.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Peacemaker.
Yeah. When season 2 came around, we didn't see like super suits all the time. That wasn't like a highlight of the action scenes, where like Chris was both Peacemaker and just Chris, because he's still a trained military individual. And I think the same could be done for lanterns, where like you don't need the costume to use the ring. It's cool to wear the costume, obviously, but I don't think that's going to be a requirement every time. And obviously, for like budget reasons, the idea of it coming out of the ring, like the Ryan Reynolds movie, probably won't be an all the time kind of thing.
I think it also, having a physical uniform sells the space cop aspect a little bit more, I think, especially to a television viewer. That's my thought. But
I remember when Wonder Woman was wearing hippie type clothes. Yeah. And I hated it. I said, give her back her costume.
Yep.
Paul, anything about the show?
What's that?
Have you heard anything about the show? Any rumors about the Lantern show that's coming soon?
Nope.
Okay, so I want to thank everybody for filling in the blanks to a great degree, recommending things for the future and answering a lot of my questions and each other's questions. How can people find you and become part of the universes that you're defending? And we'll start with Paul.
Okay, and I actually do have a universe. It's called the Jasma universe. There's a lot of crossovers. It's all in my book. So you see all this artwork. And now that I'm going crazy with Chat GPT, because I can make Green Lantern become friends with Freddy Krueger. I mean, I could do all kinds of weird shit. So anyway, you can see my books. I'll have a lot of ebooks. Just Google Paul Dale Roberts books or Paul Dale Roberts, and you'll see some of my paranormal articles and stuff like that. But I have a bunch of illustrations now in my books, and I'm putting all these superheroes together. I put right there, that's Bloody Mary. She was from an independent comic book, and she's in a lot of my images. My character here, the legendary Dark Silhouette, he's in a lot of stuff. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun now.
Extremely awesome. Ezra, how can people find you?
I mean, I'm not exactly defending any universes right now, but you can find me at the Joker's Child. I work there. And it's a great place to be, a great place to check out for comic books. It's definitely the place that made me fall back in love with the medium, and I'm happy to guide anybody else on their comic book journey.
My wife was one of the first customers of Karen and Len when they started their comic book business eons ago. So that'd be great. I come there as often as I can, and lately I haven't been able to come inside. But I'll say hi to you through my wife next time we go over.
All right.
And John, how about you?
Sure. Well, first, I do want to say really quick, Ezra, we're very happy to have you at the Joker's Child. You are a wonderful addition to the team. So
you.
glad to have you on the core. So yeah, you can reach me at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I'm on Facebook, John Carl Yastrzymski Pepe, and check out the Indie Creator Comics podcast. The YouTube channel is Indie Creator Comics, or go to indiecreatorcomics.com. I guess I'm defending the universe of indie comics because that's where Angel Santiago and I review indie comic number ones, as well as interview indie comic creators and publishers and whatnot there. But not to be confused with whatnot. Anyway, Hercules, thank you so much for having us on here. I want one final thing to say. We can't let this episode go without the Green Lantern Oath. So, in brightest day,
This day,
in blackest
in
night,
blackest night,
let no evil escape
escape
my sight. Let those who worship
evil's might,
right,
beware my power,
Green Lantern's
Green
light.
Lantern's light.
Very, very, very cool. And thank you. And the next couple episodes, one of them will deal with the superhero Hercules of some of the lesser known comic imprints. Yes, Hercules was a caped crusader in some of these, and he could fly or jump, or he had a lot of interesting powers. And then
like Dracula, just like Dell Comics Dracula.
And the other one is when Supergirl was an Atlantean, or Power Girl, when she was the daughter of Arion of Atlantis. There was this whole big plot that most people didn't care for, but it was a long, complicated story. I've been able to track down bits and pieces of it, but I'd like to explore that in greater depth in the days to come.
Hey, can I say something real quick before we go? Okay. Hey, have you guys ever heard of Phoenix Jones? He's a real life superhero. Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Okay. I want you guys.
He's a real life felon now, I believe.
Oh, yeah, a real life felon. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the concept of these real life superheroes is mind blowing. And there's something I discovered. Okay. So if you Google list of real life superheroes, you'll get a whole list of where superheroes are. Like in Connecticut, they're in California. There's a whole list. Well, anyway, under United States, and someone contacted me and they go, Paul, I used to call myself the Demon Warrior, which I still do. And I even have a mask for it right there. And I would chase out demons from these haunted houses. I would even baptize people. Well, there was an article that was written, and they included me as a real life superhero.
Wow.
So you'll see the Demon Warrior from Sacramento, California. That's me.
That's an interesting thing, and we'll be covering that in the future as well. Here in Tenafly, I started the Junior Superhero League of Tenafly. So we have a real superhero league. In our early days, the kids used to find causes and focus on them. Now it's just basically interactive storytelling to learn mythology, modern mythology about superheroes. But I am an Avenger. Since I got my Parkinson's, I decided to, in the process of helping myself, to help other people with Parkinson's. And the organization is called the PD Avengers, and they have Avenger Assemble meetings once a month. So I've been playing with the concept a little bit more recently. So I'm going to be doing something with that, and of course, I will invite all of you to take part if you'd like to. So be well, everybody, and thanks again.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank
Thank you
you
for having us.
Thank you. Nice